Leeds, Leeds, Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Working Hours, an oral history podcast about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours wants to record 1,000 loiners over the course of this, the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them about what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. My mission here is to try to map out what my city, Leeds, a city that has declared a climate emergency, did during humanity's biggest emergency. On Working Hours, we hear how loiners have, are, and will be coping with our multiple and expanding crises during their day-to-day working hours. Can we turn things around? We'll find out. To tell this story, I need loiners like you, dear listener. I need people in Leeds or people from Leeds to come on this podcast and just tell me what they do all day and let me record how this affects us. Thank you for listening. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I always wanted to be making things. So in some capacity, I wanted to be making something. Kind of that making thing wasn't necessarily building physical things. For a long time, I wanted to be a chef and worked as a chef through uni. So that was making and creating food and meals, obviously. So I was still in that capacity of high intense stress, deadline, perfection. So it was up from being 5 years old. I was working and doing bits with my dad in the garage or on my own in the garage, making stuff. So always hands on. So yeah, quite lucky really, because that's what I've ended up doing. And, you know, it's kind of a hobby rather than a job, although that balance has definitely changed somewhat of late. But yeah, making anything creative, making, building something from a raw material to a finished product.
So did you have a lot of, like, toy-wise, was it all Lego and Meccano, or did you stick to one over the other, or...?
Yeah, so I started with like a wooden brio. I had a wooden brio set. I still remember the set. It was a big case with a wooden sliding lid on it. Really heavy. I could never. I used to remember waking my dad up at like 5 a.m. to put these like plastic cog tire wheels around these wooden wheels so that I could create some form of car or motorbike or crane or something. So that's my first memory of like a building tangible material where I was nuts and bolts putting them through. I couldn't tell you how old I was, but definitely 5, 6, 7 age. That then went to kind of so that was a brio. That was from the toy shop that used to be in the St. John's Centre in Leeds. Early Learning Centre, was it? There was an Early Learning Centre toy shop. I used to be obsessed with that shop, the tractors and the brio. That kind of progressed to a Meccano. Then that went to like a Lego, but I quite quickly just went to actual building materials in the garage, wood, anything I could get my hands on that my dad had left lying around that looked free for taking.
You're listening to Series 4, Episode 23, and to my guest, Paul Rutherford. This is another Zoom interview recorded on the 12th of June, 2023. Paul Rutherford lives in Garforth and grew up in Headingley, studying design at York St John and then staying on in York for a few years until meeting his now wife, who lived in Leeds. At the same time as that, Paul was also starting his business in Leeds. It just made sense to move back. Paul is now the director of 3 Create, a 50-50 partnership with business partner Matt. In a nutshell, 3 Create, design and manufacture a wide range of products and provide an equally wide range of services. In business for 9 years this October, 3 Create work on projects such as shop fittings, marketing activations, event builds, and much, much more. 3 Create have a workshop just outside of Leeds in Knottingley and moved there due to massive cost increases in Leeds city centre. Just before starting the business and meeting his wife Kate, Paul was struggling with anxiety and having panic attacks. Paul says that the experience changed my confidence and direction in life. Everything unfolded for the better in the end, but I still must battle with those mental health struggles when they decide to creep in. Right, let's do this. Episode 103 of Working Hours with Paul Rutherford. So we'll just jump into what is it that you do now?
Okay, so now I run a design and manufacture company. We've been going 9 years this year, and we build anything and everything really. And we kind of work in marketing, we work in shop fitting, we work in one-off pieces, furniture pieces, through to shop fit install and office fit out, a varied range of different sectors that we work in. So it's hands-on, it's machines, it's woodwork, not traditional. I'm no traditional carpenter by any means. It's very much kind of problem, solution, computer to help us work it out, put it on a machine if that's possible, let the machine do all the hard work. Me and the guys, my business partner Matt, will then kind of put that together and send it out. So quite a quick turnaround process is what we sort of strive for, but all creative, all building, all starting with that raw material being delivered in through to a finished product.
And sort of, so how wide's your customer base? Are you like regional, national, international?
I always moan about this. I always say, like, there's got to be more work outside of Leeds. We're always just doing stuff in Leeds, but yeah, I mean, we've been to Paris. We've done a job in Paris, so that's as far as we've gone. We've made things that have been sent out to Singapore, New York. So you kind of start, you come home and you can say to the kids, "Oh, I've just sent something to Singapore today, or to New York," and the glamour that they see of that side of it is like, "Oh wow." But actually, it was a bit of foam that we just machined out and sent there. It's really, really boring, but I just bring home the interesting side of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, predominantly Leeds, Yorkshire. We've done a lot in London and a lot. Glasgow is for years we were in Glasgow all the time, but that's kind of petered off a bit now. But yeah, Leeds is a good stronghold.
Yeah, there's always building work, and you've got the building college as well, which must be quite useful occasionally.
Yeah, we've had some good apprentices through the building college actually. Yeah. So yeah, it's a good. There's an abundance in Leeds, and Leeds is, I mean, we're not meant to be spending any money, but Leeds is still spending money, and the perception is we're not supposed to be spending money, but Leeds is still, it's still busy. We're booked up. I'm not twiddling my thumbs. I've got a very messy workshop, which my dad always says, a messy workshop is a busy workshop. So, it's a positive.
Yeah. So let's go into how you got into it. Take us through the story. Obviously, there's a bit of chefing in there, as you mentioned.
Bit of chefing, yeah. So I was in I was at school, and all my friends did design technology. I did food technology, and my wife tells me, I say it's confidence. My wife tells me it's pure arrogance. Some of the decisions I make, my understanding of what they did in design technology in GCSE was making a chessboard or making this or making that. And I was like, I've been doing that in my dad's garage since I was 5 years old. I can do that with my eyes shut. I don't need to do that. I'll go do food technology. I mean, as a 14, 15-year-old lad thinking, do design technology with all my mates or do food technology with all the girls, maybe there's an ulterior motive in like my direction of what was wanted. But I was like, well, I enjoy doing cooking, I enjoy the food, and I can do all the woodwork, so I'll do something different. So I started the food technology at GCSE. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the whole kind of the process. Like, my grandma was a huge baker. She loved baking. It was a case of, you go around there, don't worry if you can't eat your lunch, because there's loads of cakes to eat afterwards. It doesn't matter. So just eat what you can, get a cake down your face. So I was baking with her, baking at school, doing these bits. And I was like, oh, do you know what? And I was chefing part-time. I'd got a job at the Lord Darcy in Leeds, just like Old Woodley way. I was like pot washing, and then ended up doing a little bit of chefing on a Sunday lunch and helping out a bit. And one of the guys there, he'd been a chef in the army. And I was like, oh, do you know what? Yeah, I quite fancy that. Like, real direction in the army, but not getting shot at, cooking food, like that mass sort of production, churning it out, doing it. And, it's a good career path. But I'm quite a home bird, like being away from my parents, not being in Yorkshire or, even in the UK, I was a bit like, actually, do you know what? Like, I'd really miss my parents. I'd miss my family. I'd miss that kind of network. So that's kind of where my head was at. Then went to do my A-levels. So I was at Lawnswood, went to Lawnswood School out on the Ring Road and got my A-levels. And by this point, I was like, well, I want to do art. You couldn't do food technology as an A-level. So I was like, I'll do design because I'd been to like the open evening. It sounded quite cool. I was like, yeah, I'll do that and just kind of see how that goes. So I really enjoyed that course and excelled at it. And for somebody who's been average through school, average at maths, average at English, sciences, things like that, I was a bit like, oh, well, actually, you're all right, go on, you can come down, don't worry. I am, yeah, there you go. I'll do it on the phone because my laptop won't work. Yeah, so started the design course and really enjoyed it. And like I say, was so average at everything else that I had to kind of like hook onto something I was good at, but really enjoyed it. So it was easy because I enjoyed it. Yeah. It was easy. So then
but it's nice when you find a subject like that, isn't it? That suddenly you're like, I'm doing well at this, like, and I enjoy it. I wonder if those two things are linked.
Yeah, there must be. Yeah, I was watching a video today about this guy who is like, I mean, I could talk for days about schools and how I don't really agree with schools and the school system. And this guy I was watching today, this video, he was saying like, they don't teach you about money in schools. If you want to be rich and you want to be somebody in that respect, if money is your worth, then you've got to study money. They'll never teach you money at school because they don't want you to learn money. They want you to learn how to work to earn for other people. And that's kind of what I did. I kind of found this design technology subject and was like, well, I really enjoy this, and can I turn this into a job and a career? Because if I do this all day, then like I'm just gonna love life. Like, this is great. Like, like, why didn't I do this at GCSE? Why did I do food technology? Like, the arrogance then was, kind of came to light that, then the confidence came back and I was like, oh, no, it's because I could have done that. So it's all right.
Yeah. And it was worthwhile. I mean, you ended up with a job out of it ultimately.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I chefed throughout uni, so I didn't ever have to be front of house. I could hide away.
Yeah.
So really enjoyed that. And then, my mum and dad were like, oh, well, you're going to go to uni. What do you fancy? And I was like, yeah, do you know what? Like, I didn't want to, but yeah, now I do. That's what I want to do. And all your mates are going, aren't they? Or the majority of my mates were going to unis in different places. And it was quite nice. Like, I thought, just a bit of a break, like just get away from Leeds a little bit and just kind of meet a few new people and move away. So I went about 1 million miles to York because I couldn't be too far away from home. So finished A-levels and then obviously went off to uni. And the course, it was York St John Uni, which I always have to state that my degree is a Leeds University degree, not a York St John University degree, because people always like, oh, all right. And I'm like, well, it was Leeds Uni. It was part of Leeds. But, you get older. It doesn't matter, does it? So, yeah, at uni, got to uni, doing design, products, 3D and furniture design, and was just in my element.
Was that the first time sort of designing on computers then? Was that?
Yeah, so that was, so first time drawing on a computer with any difficulty where I was challenged and was problem solving. And it was so nice not to be guided, that the uni said, this is what you got to achieve, go achieve it. And I wasn't constrained by the educational kind of barriers and box ticking and, you've got to display and you still had to at uni, you still had to give a good, sketchbook and development and evaluations and all that kind of stuff. But it was kind of like, well, you've paid to be here. We're telling you what you got to do. Go do it. There's no exam at the end of it. So for me, I hate exams. I'm crumbling an exam. Put me in that pressure of retaining some information, and I might know it, but it's gone. Whereas coursework, building something, like, I'm there, I'll do it. And my dad, I was really fortunate. My dad, he works for himself, and the finances were there for them to pay for me to go to uni. So I didn't have to pay my fees. He bought a house where I was, so my rent was cheaper. Really fortunate, really lucky. And with that, I was a bit like, do you know what? That's a lot they've put in. I've got to give as much back, and can't really just be out drinking and doing nothing. I've got to put the time in and the effort in. So I just treat uni like a 9-to-5 job. I went in at 9, I finished at 5. On an evening, I went and chefed in a few different restaurants, and I always had money, and I always got everything done, and I was never last minute or overwhelmed with my work. So again, does that stem from the fact that I just enjoyed it? I really thrived off that subject, and I think because I was getting firsts, top marks constantly, and it was just the first time in my life, from school at 5 years old through to now I'm 19, 20, I'm actually getting a pat on the back and going, you're really good at this, rather than, well, he needs to try harder, and if he, maybe worth getting him a maths tutor or an English tutor, and maybe do this, maybe do that. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm not interested. I can do all these things, but I don't care. And all of a sudden I did care, and I was told I was good. So my confidence from the tutors was like raised so much more of like, okay, I can achieve. Like there is something for me in life that I can really achieve at. That I've not been told for the last 14 years or however long it is in standard education. This is my time, my choice, my subject, and kind of my starting point of moving forwards into what will be my career in some capacity. So yeah, that's kind of where it all was. That your question? Where did it begin?
We're going into sort of how you got into it. So I mean, I take it you didn't go straight into starting up for yourself. So did you do a few years working with your dad, or was it working with different companies? Or
no. So my dad's an engineer, so he fixes cars, and I've got no interest in cars whatsoever. So I was while I was at uni, had a few good friends, and finished uni. We're not really many there's just not many jobs out there, and you're like, I'd really enjoy like the furniture design side of it. So I was like really enjoying the furniture and building furniture, and that still to this day is my passion. Like, I want to make furniture. A whole reason as to that, which I can explain later. There's a girl who I was with, so creative, such a personality, such a lovely girl, and she'd done her second year work experience at a company in York called Event Prop Hire, what at the time was called Scenecraft, and they built scenes and props for film and TV and parties and things like that. And I'd ended up working for an interior design company in Ripponden. So I was living in York, commuting every day to Ripponden, which is like an hour and 20 minutes door to door over the M62 from York all the way to like nearly Manchester every day. And I was just like in this like pit of despair over like, this isn't interior design. I'm fitting blinds. I'm not respected, but ultimately I don't respect myself in this position. And what am I doing? So I kind of went to her and I was like, oh, what was that company? She told me. So I literally went, knocked on the door and was like, can I work here? And they were like, no, we've like no positions for like joinery, woodworking kind of side of things. And I was like, okay, well, I don't work on Tuesdays. Can I just come and work here just to get a bit of enjoyment back? And they were like, well, yeah, if you want to, like, we can't pay you. And I was like, yeah, cool. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm in that much of a hole of kind of not a depression or feeling, just a bit lost.
No, it
kind
just
of
needs
like,
some joy. It's like I need something to enjoy. I need something to get up for.
Yeah, I was still chefing on a weekend and enjoying that and the social side of that and doing that. But I was like, I just found my niche and it's gone already. It's like not being fulfilled straight away. So anyway, I kind of knocked on their door and went there, and I did one Tuesday, and then the boss rang me and he was like, "Oh, you coming next Tuesday?" I was like, "Yeah, like, I loved it." He was like, "Okay, cool." So I went the following Tuesday, and at the end of the day, he was like, "Look, like this is the arrogance coming out again." He was like, "Look, we didn't realize we needed you, but the speed you work at and your efficiency and what you know, like, is just perfect for what we're doing. Like, we can definitely find you a role. Can you leave your other job?" And I was like, "Yeah, done." And he was like, "Well, how long? What's your notice?" And I was like, "No, done. I'm done. Yeah, I'll start tomorrow." I'd literally have got. They've got no respect for me. I've got no respect for it. It's not the right decision, we never tell the kids to do that. But ultimately, when you're that far gone into like this kind of lostness, then someone kind of goes, "Here you go. This is where to go." I was just like, "Oh wow, great."
Yeah.
So started working there, and it was just like worlds apart. I'm working on like cool stuff, like if anyone gets a chance, like event prop hire, and I think they might be called. They might just change the name. They're in Wetherby. Got a massive place owned by two guys, Rosie and Matt, two of the nicest people, and gave me an opportunity and was there at the start of their business building, and it was just creativity after creativity. Throw in a good pound of stress and a lot of late nights and working bank holidays and all the kinds of stuff you do when you really love your job, I suppose, that you don't mind doing. Money was all right, but the fulfillment was just like perfection. That I'm just doing exactly what I want to do. But always in the back of my mind, never left from being a young kid, is that I wanted my own business. So I was kind of like, well, this is good, but I'm still doing something for somebody else. I'm still told when to come to work. I'm still told when to leave. I'm still told how much I'm getting paid. I've still got to do it by their rules. And I was kind of like, yeah, that's fine, but like, I don't want to work all the bank holidays and weekends, and I want a bit of my own time, and I'm still chefing at the weekend. I'm still Friday, Saturday, Sunday chefing at this point. I'm a year or two out of uni working there. I think I worked there for 3 years, and first year and a half, I think I probably still chef. So I'm burning the candle at every possible end. I'm up early, building stuff. In fact, I used to go to the gym back in them days. So I was up early, gym, up, cycle to work, build stuff, cycle back, do that all week, chef all weekend. Chefs have got a bit of a reputation for the drink. So your weekends would end fairly heavy. Back at it Monday morning. But all the while thinking, want my own business. So I left there in the end and ended up, where did I go in after there? I went and worked. So a lad came and worked for us for a bit, but he went off and worked for a joinery firm, just fitting doors and windows. And he was like, "Oh, you want to come? Like, I'm earning good money. Like, what's this, like 2006, 7, 8, 9?" And it was like 20, 25 pound an hour fitting doors and windows. I was like, okay, yeah, good money, learning another skill. This can help the business in the future. I've done prop building, I've done film building, I've done scenic stuff, I've done this kind of, I've cut my teeth here. I've worked on my dad's houses in the past, so I can know how to work on houses. So I'm starting to build this kind of like catalogue of experience that whatever my business ends up being, I can kind of do something at least. I've got this like kind of jack of all trades skill set.
But it's also empirical experience as well, isn't it? It's not just the theoretical book learning. It's like, I've done that, so I know how it works. I know how long it takes. I know how hard and how easy it is. So yeah, so you can assess things and plan things, but you can also deal with people that are doing it and not get shortchanged.
And knowing how much I'm getting charged out at and how much I'm getting paid. And that's such a taboo subject, owning a business, that, you know, people kind of like, you know, I might, for example, pay somebody £15 an hour and I might charge them out at £65 an hour. And people are like, oh, well, look at you skimming off all that money making, you know, it's like, well, actually, no, like I've got to pay like rent, bills, electricity, you know, there's
and
so
their
much
tax and insurance as well.
tax, insurance, just, you know, so many variables,
and the
where
personnel HR costs of it, and that, you know, just the per hour business costs.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's that literally spirals. Next thing you know, you kind of like, well, actually, I need to be charging them out at, you know, and people then forget in that you've got to make a profit. There's got to be a profit. You know, ultimately, I can go and get a job earning what I'm earning with less stress running a business. So why don't I just go do that? But I make a profit, and the profit is there as a reward, you know, and it's reinvested or it's dividended up or whatever, however that is. But so learning those skills, learning that pricing, learning the time it takes, learning. Do you know what? When I run my business, I don't want to be working on site, because when I'm on site, I've got a van that I've got to lug all the tools out of into the building for a 10-minute job to lug them all back again. So I don't want to do site work. You know, that big tick, I'm not doing that. That's a pain. Like, it's not happening. Let's negate that. So then I ended up getting a job for a exhibition company in York. So I'm still living in York at this point. So all this is like in York based. So I got working at an exhibition company in York, ended up working in London for like 6 months on and off. Really good. I'd learned high-end quality skills there, finishing, really good quality finishing skills. And then I ended up earning a lot of money there, and I went to China for a bit. My ex-girlfriend was Chinese, and you get changed from education to working. You have to kind of self-report to get a new visa to come back. So she'd done that. So she was on like a 6-month waiting period for this visa. So I went over there for a little bit and came back, and kind of really just hit this absolute like lull. It must have just been the holiday blues that just continued, basically. But this lull of falling out of love with making anything. So I was like, right, I'm not doing building anything. My dad rang me up and he was like, oh, do you want to come over to, you know, mine and your mum's and help build this fence and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, nah, I'll come over, but I'm not doing any woodwork. I'm just sick of it. I think because I was just never really earning much money and putting in loads of time and effort.
Yeah.
And it was becoming like that passion and that love for the subject and the products and the building is kind of
starting to resent it.
Yeah, I think I'd monetized it. I think I'd gone like, do you know what? I'm doing all this. Where's the money?
Yeah.
You know, and I was so then I was kind of like, well, I can't just work for free and blah, blah, blah. So I'd worked a few little odd jobs here and there, doing a bit of driving work and soul searching, I suppose. And I ended up working for an events company in Leeds, a company called Well Pleased Events. So I've kind of like gone full circle, really. I've been building stuff for events. I was now kind of working in events, but I suppose my knowledge along that kind of, you know, road that I'd been on put me in a position of, you know, being kind of quite desirable as a bit of a freelancer. And so I'd worked a few rubbish jobs, ended up in events in Leeds. So I'm still living in New York. I'm now back commuting again, a bit of a distance. But I was head of production I was the only one in production. So I was the all-seeing eye of my own self. But their offices were in Leeds City Centre, and the workshop / stores were in Mabgate. Oh, sorry, missed the key thing out actually. So just before then, I'd worked for myself for a bit. I set up a little workshop making furniture, and again, my passion for furniture, I'll come to it later. And for want of a better word, like I was shit at it. I was shit running a business. I didn't put any effort into it, and I expected things to kind of land at my door. And the complete wrong attitude to running a business. You've got to go get it. It's not given to you. You've got to go get it. However, the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, because I now know exactly what failure is in a hard, fast, ended up with no money, in debt, like struggling, but had found my passion and love for building things again. So that was fine. So I was good. I didn't care about the money because the passion was back. And I did that for probably about a year. Just how I survived, just floating through, paying the odd bill here and there and rent. And I could have gone back to chefing. I didn't even do that because I was like, in fact, no. To earn a bit of money to make sure I paid my rent, I ended up I was a Domino's delivery driver, which is the best and worst job going. So you get free pizza every night, to which I reckon I burnt myself every night because I got the pizza, got in the car and forgot that the drive home is where it cools down a bit. And I couldn't wait and was just shoveling it in and burning myself. So I was just surviving. He was just clawing through and just like, I know who I am. I know what I want to be. I know where I want to be. Why on earth can't I get there?
Yeah.
What is it?
I can see what it looks like. Yeah, I can see where I am. How does one get to the other?
Yeah, and do you know, it's not even. I don't want to be a millionaire. I just want to be happy.
Yeah.
And it's never been about the money. It's never about that. But I was just like, Jesus, like, can I catch a break? Like, but ultimately, now I know, later on in life, the older I've got, do you know what? It's me. I'm the issue. Like, it's not anybody else's fault. It's not any other situational fault. It's me. Yeah. I'm the one who can make a difference. I'm the one who can make it not work. I'm the one who puts the effort in, and what you put in is what you get out ultimately, isn't it? So that was kind of where I was at. And then while I was working for myself, the events company had come to me to build some stuff for them. So then I ended up working for them. I was kind of like, look, like, I'm not on my ass a bit here. Business is not good. I've got all this equipment, these tools and machines. Why don't I bring them there and set up a workshop there? And then I'll kind of do my own bits and do bits for you and run that. And I ended up basically just doing all the production for them, hence being head of production on my own. And did that for a couple of years, I think it was, before I left there. But while I was there, employed a guy called Matt to be my assistant, who's now my business partner. So like I said, their office was in Leeds City Centre, but the workshop was in Mabgate, the beautiful Mabgate area of Leeds. And so we were kind of a little bit, you feel a bit of a renegade, and you're kind of like, I don't really know what we're doing down here. We're kind of like, we can have any conversations we want. We can kind of criticize or take on board the successes or whatever. And, so I was like, Matt, so we've got a CNC machine. So for those who don't know, it's a computer numerically controlled machine. You put a sheet of wood on it, you've drawn your program, it cuts it out for you. A flat surface, you're not doing shapes necessarily, but
it's like a 3D printer, but just on a 2D plane, but you can have it 3D as well, can't you?
Yeah, so you would cut out, imagine getting a piece of paper and drawing a load of shapes on it and cutting all those shapes out and then building something with it. But obviously, if your materials can be up to 50 mil thick, you can mill into that, and we can build some cool stuff with it. So we'd got one of these secondhand at this events company, and we were like, I was like, Matt, like, where you take away the event side of it, take away them finding the jobs, take that element away, right? We're building everything, we're doing everything. So all we need to do is learn how to get the jobs. Because the jobs rely solely upon us building the stuff, creating the stuff, or getting stuff off the shelf and putting it there. It's like, do you fancy just kind of like having an absolute gamble and just like doing it? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So that's how the business started. Prior to that, my mental health had just deteriorated. Like it's a hard one to talk about. Not because I don't like talking about it, because I'll talk about it till I'm like blue in the face, because I'm so passionate about how important mental health is for everybody. And I listen to some podcasts where they're like, oh, you just got to man up and you got to move on, you got to do this, and I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, you do. To a degree, you do. You don't wallow, don't self-pity. But when you don't know what's happening to you,
I know. Yeah, you can't outrun your emotions. They're with you. They'll catch you up.
Yeah. I mean, I was getting caught in a little bit. So I'm still living in York. I'm still working in Leeds. But the business is kind of an idea. So I'm going back to I can tell you, it started, my mental health went like a light switch on November the 26th. Oh, I don't know now, 2014, 2013. 2013. And it was like an overnight light switch. What had happened was I'd absolutely burnt myself out. Whilst burning myself out, I'd been absolutely caning the Red Bulls and the coffee, and that, and cold in a workshop. So you like 20 cups of coffee just to keep warm. It's not coffee. I don't care about caffeine. It's the warmth I wanted. And ultimately, I just broke myself. Literally broke my own.
It's mental. Like running a machine basically in the red the whole time. Essentially, is what you've done, which you don't do.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I'm going back nearly 10 years. Now what I realise is that issue is always there. That's always been in me. That's been the lack of confidence that comes through as arrogance. That's been the nervousness as a kid to get involved. That's been the fact that, I've got 2 or 3 mates. I'm not social. It's hyper focused on one subject. All those things where I'm kind of like, I look back now and I'm like, I wouldn't self-diagnose myself with ADHD or autism or anything like that, other than my brain works in a particular way. It was being managed and maintained by, like you say, just topping up the oil every so often. And at that point, I forgot to do that. And I absolutely broke the machine. And, imposter syndrome comes in here, where I'm kind of like, yeah, but I mean, some people have it so much worse, and I didn't do anything. But there's days where I was like, okay, well, I'm not really giving anything back to my family now, or my friends, or my work. Might just go kill myself, because maybe that's a better option. So I'm like, these thought processes were like, it's almost like a strobe light, like dunk, dunk, gone. And it was like, is that a suicidal thought? Is that a consideration of a suicidal thought? And again, the more I've listened and learned in the years, I'm like, yeah, no, that point was, that wasn't a good place to be. But I think because I was that arrogant, confident, it didn't knock me down. It knocked my confidence and it knocked my arrogance. But it didn't knock me low. It's the only way I can describe it. It didn't knock me low enough, because I was already kind of put myself on a bit of a pedestal for being able to just get on and do things. But yeah, Jesus, that knocked me like you wouldn't believe. Like, I'm a 30-year-old man sat crying in a traffic jam because I feel blocked in by the lorry in front of me. I'm having a panic attack because I can't see around the lorry. Then I'm thinking I'm having a panic attack while driving a car Then I'm thinking it's not a panic attack, it's a heart attack. Then I'm thinking I'm driving a car having a heart attack. Next thing you know, your head's blown off, literally, and it's just awful. And I was going days where it was panic attack after panic attack after panic attack in a day. And that's just exhausting, just absolutely exhausting. So I was like, again, it's a situation I'm in. It's the job. It's the commute. It's the long hours. It's this. It's the stressing about money. I was in a bit of debt. I, was kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. I'm like, do you know what? I've just got to set up my own business, because ultimately, at least then, if I'm not making any money, it's my own bloody doing. It's my own choice. It's my own. I've learned that in the past it failed because I didn't do enough. I need to do it now and do more, and I'll make money. So collared Matt and was like, let's do it. And he said yes. At the same time, I got a message off a friend's friend, this girl who was like, oh, do you want to go on a date? We kind of got a friend in common. Let's go on a blind date. And I was like, well, last week I was thinking about killing myself. This week I'm thinking about starting a business and going to go on a date. So I was like, yeah, do you know what? I've got nothing to lose. Because if the business doesn't work and the girl doesn't work, I'll just go back and think about killing myself again, because I was at rock bottom. So it can't get any worse than this. So that's kind of where my mindset was at. It was like all or nothing. Still got the business, married with 3 kids to the girl. It's kind of like, that was my savior. I needed Kate, my wife, as a kind of reality check. I'm not going to say she's not going to start blowing smoke up my ass and telling me I'm amazing and yeah, go on, look at you, you're a go-getter. She's we'll go get more or go do it better. So she's a reality check, and that's what I needed. That brought away the arrogance. The business and the success brought about the confidence, and the mental health is managed. It's always there. It's always a problem, but it's a competition, and I'm always winning. But
do you self-manage it all? Then did you go see anyone?
No, well, I went to the doctors. So yeah, advice for anybody: if you want to make a doctor's appointment and you want to go see a doctor, my mum works in a doctor's surgery as a receptionist. She said the best thing you can do, you go to the doctors, and when you ring up, you book a double appointment. Don't book a single. Don't say I want an appointment. I'd like a double appointment. The double appointment gives you time in the doctor's surgery to get rid of all the bullshit before you actually tell them that there's something not right. Because if you went to a normal doctor's appointment, you'll go, oh, well, I'm like, I'm feeling a bit like this. My heart rate's a bit high. This, stick a blood pressure monitor on you. I'm a bit stressed at work. They tell you to have a week off. They do this, they do that. You have a double appointment. They kind of, and they should ultimately know there's something a little bit deeper rooted. So I was medicated with propranolol, which is a beta blocker, which my issue was my heart rate was racing. Then I was kind of catastrophizing that in my head, that I was having a heart attack or there was something worse that would then create a panic attack. It was just perpetual, constant. The beta blockers knocked that down. I then was like, I don't want to be on tablets for the rest of my life. I need to get out of this mindset myself and understand it. So I just researched the shit out of it. I was just like, what is anxiety? What is a panic attack? Did everything I could to learn. And that's kind of what I do. If something needs building, something's broken, or there needs to be a solution to a problem, I work it out. And I'll just research it and work it out. And that's kind of what I did with my own brain. So yeah, so now I know my own triggers and I know kind of how to get through it. 10 years on, I've still had panic attacks. I've still felt anxious. Depression is such a heavy word to use, and I don't use it lightly because I think there's, you can say, I'm really depressed. You're just a bit low. I'm not depressed. So I don't know if I was ever depressed officially. But I have moments of self-pity and wallowing, and in the loosest sense of term, if you want to call it depression as a word to make it easier to understand, then I feel sometimes still a bit depressed. But I know people who have depression, and it's I can still get out of bed and I can still function.
Yeah,
It's I just feel shit some days, and that's, and again, I put that down to sometimes just being my own misery of like just get up and losing that get up and go a little bit, being a bit bone idle, a bit knackered, stayed up too late, that kind of stuff. Got up too early, stayed up too late for too many days.
It's a really weird area, though. Like, to speak in the abstract rather than in kind of mental health kind of verbiage. Like, it is a matter because, you're talking a lot about motivation there and motivating yourself and being, go get them and do it. But then there's also, you need to know when to stop and you need to know when to rest and to make sure that you've got enough kind of, like, then the machine's being looked after, everything's been tightened, it's been oiled, it's been filled up, and it's not being run, too excessively. But it's hard to find that line and keep that line. Like, I mean, I think for anybody, but yeah, it sounds like, because obviously you're doing a lot of going and getting them, but then there's a lot of like, oh, I haven't got the energy. And then you start beating yourself up because you're trying to motivate yourself, essentially, I suppose.
Yeah, that's it. And there's always a fear of failure, isn't there? I always say to people that, say you're going for a job interview, or say you're wanting to apply for a job, and people procrastinate over it. And for me, what I do is I might procrastinate over going for applying for a job, or like even messaging you saying, look, I'd love to be on the podcast. You might say no, okay, or the job might say no. If I don't ask you, there's still a potential of it being a yes.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't apply for the job, there's still a potential of it being a yes.
Mm.
And it's that I have that battle quite a lot where I'm like, well, I just won't bother, because if I don't bother, it's still a potential of being a yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a hard, fast no.
Mm.
But I frustrate myself because I'm really good with a no, because I can work my way around with a no. That's not happening. But yeah, I still protect myself from that no by kind of going, oh, I won't just do it yet, or I won't try yet, or I won't give that a go because I don't want it to fail, and blah blah blah. And it's that kind of pressure everybody puts on themselves, and it is a constant internal battle of the fear of failure. And I tell my eldest all the time, I'm like, look, just fail to your heart's content. Especially now, like, you're at home, your bills are paid, your food's on the table. It's like, kids these days, like, just go and fail at everything, because you'll learn so much.
Yeah.
Learn so much about yourself and so much about the world. But that's they got to go to school and they got to do the homework and they got to talk to the friends, so they ain't got time to fail. But yeah, that kind of, that constant self-motivation is sometimes really difficult. I've got 3 kids and running a business and doing all that, and you might have people pestering you to, you got a kid ill at home, it's diarrhea and vomiting, and you got a customer ringing you up because their CNC rainbow isn't ready, and you're like, God, get a grip. Like, what's your deadline? Well, I need it desperately. Well, what's going to happen if you don't get it? Because right now I'm like eyeballs deep in vomit and poo. Just. I annoy my business partner because my reality on life, I'm just kind of like, yeah, whenever. Like, what does it matter? Like, we're all on this spinning earth, and everyone stresses about deadline this and gotta be now and do, and I'm like, geez, just take a rain check. Like, just slow down. We can still earn money and not be pulling our hair out. But maybe you can't earn money and not be pulling your hair out. I don't know.
Well, I want to go into COVID now. I'm going to bring us more into questions.
Yeah, sure.
So, but I think we've touched on some of this anyway. But obviously, so the question around COVID is sort of going into lockdown. I guess, with the business there, a lot at the beginning would be kind of cancelling jobs and then managing jobs and expectations of customers. But the question is also about kind of changes coming out of COVID. Obviously, for some people, those changes are just like, meeting online or whatever. But obviously, mental health was a huge part, and social isolation and so on. And you've mentioned a couple of changes that it's had on you guys. So how did COVID and the lockdown affect your work?
Yeah, so massively. But as I mentioned at the beginning, we work in quite a few different sectors. So any of the events work we did, that just gone. It's not happening for the foreseeable. Any of the office fit outs we were maybe working on, gone. We're not spending money on there. Money we were owed, not getting paid because, and understandably, none of anything I say is bitter because it's survival. People were, ultimately look at it from a civilian point of view. People were desperate for toilet paper. So when it comes to people paying invoices that were overdue, they're not going to pay because they're also scared. People were buying toilet roll because they were scared of the unknown, and people weren't paying invoices because they were scared of the unknown. So I have no bitterness to that, and I understand why people did that. That screwed us over. That was difficult to swallow, knowing no matter what you did, there's not much you can really do.
No,
because you're nursing a relationship as well. So when this all finishes, if I start chasing this person and start threatening court letters, and COVID ends, which we didn't know at the time, in a week, a month, a year, whatever, and then they're going to go, well, when the shit hit the fan and we couldn't pay you because of this COVID and you were really aggressive with us trying to get your money. When I say aggressive, I mean legally aggressive.
I know what you mean, yeah.
You're aggressive with us trying to get this money. We don't want to work with you anymore. So you kind of like, it's that fear, isn't it? Well, I don't want to annoy them but they owe me money and that's my money and I've done the work and now they're not paying me, but I want to work with them again because I want them to pay me again. And you're like, hang about, who's owning it here? What's this mentality? And I kind of just went, great. Like, I'm at home with the kids. The sun's shining. Like, what will be is what will be. I can't control this. I'm being told not to work.
Yeah.
I'm not going to work. Like, fine. So, first couple of days, I built the kids a treehouse in the garden because I needed to build something.
Yeah.
All the while, back of my mind, I'm like, shit, like, what am I going back to? Is it nothing? Am I going to have to sell the machines? I've got rent to pay. I'm tied into a lease. Like, the next thing you know, you're hearing of a company that's like a company you kind of idolize a bit, while they're doing really well, look at the jobs they're doing. We're doing work for them. Gone, and you're like, geez, they've gone, but they're events, we're not events. So then we were kind of like a little bit not doing much. I brought my computer home and I started just kind of fiddling around with a few bits here and there. And
shuffling papers and trying to look busy.
Just like my missus was a teacher and she was upstairs teaching all day and I had the kids. And then when they went back to doing like the homeschooling, like the teaching for remote learning, and I'm like, yeah, I need to do some work. Yeah, I need to just get away from the kids. Like, I just gotta maybe delete this email. Like, and that was nothing. I had nothing. Flogging a dead horse. And what I was saying before about stuff coming to you and you getting stuff, and when you're running a business, you got to go get it, but stuff does come to you. For stuff to come to you, you've got to see that it's coming, and you've then got to go get it. So a guy emails me and he's like, "Oh, can you see my dad out this?" Like, I think maybe at this point we're maybe allowed back in a little bit. Yeah. We're furloughed, so we're getting paid on a furlough. The staff were getting paid, so we were kind of like, Me and Matt were just taking minimum, nothing. We were taking nothing. We were making sure our rent and our bills were paid, because what we said was, I'd rather go back with no money in my bank but have a business than have money in my bank and have loads of debt in the business.
Yeah.
Ultimately. And financially, I was all right. Wife's a teacher, so we were all right. We weren't going out spending money on anything social. So
we
were lucky.
You had enough to cover everything that you needed off that, because you weren't needing a lot, because you couldn't do very much.
No fuel. I mean, my wife was we live in Leeds now, and she was working in York. So her fuel bill was gone. So straight away, we were like 230 quid better off a month for her fuel bill. So we were like, okay, well, we're all right. So so this guy emails me. He's like, "Oh, can you make a beehive for my dad? He's got bees and machine it out and blah blah blah." So I like having this email conversation. This is how much it'll be. Okay, it's too expensive. Blah 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 blah. But the way this kind of narrative was going, this guy was like, it seemed really nice. Local to where I live, community based, just a real nice guy. And then people started going back in a little bit when the plastic screen started. And my business partner's girlfriend is a hairdresser. So he built a plastic screen. He nipped into the workshop, made this plastic screen, shoved it on their reception desk, took a picture of it. And when he took a picture of it, we put it on our Instagram. And then a buyer for the NHS saw this image, and we ended up making majority of the plastic screens for the West Yorkshire doctor's surgeries. So we were back to kind of making money. We didn't want to capitalize on it, because we didn't want to make money. We didn't want to be like,
you didn't want to be profiteering.
Didn't want to profiteer. No, we didn't. So I said to this guy, look, this is how much the material is. This is how much I charged for CNC work before COVID. This is how much I'll charge you now. It's the same amount. I'll show you an invoice. It's the same amount. I'm not profiteering. And that was kind of tying us over, and was really good to just skim off the bills, and also kind of just like get out of the house a little bit, go to the workshop. It was just a little bit of freedom. So we were then doing the plastic screens and churning through those. And monetary wise, we did, in that period of time, I think we did about 60, 70 grand's worth, which seems a lot, but that was like the only money we made.
It's going to pay for machines, everything. It's going to pay for a business, a company.
It's kept the bottom line fine, And then this guy who'd emailed me about the beehive, he'd come back to me, and he was starting a project which was building prefab homes, like CNC cut out, sort of thing you see on Grand Designs, prefab homes. And ultimately, like I was saying, stuff comes to you, but you've got to kind of keep hold of it. It's that nurturing that relationship. And this guy was nice, and I was like, yeah, cool. And, I had a lot of time to email because I wasn't doing anything else. So you could nurture that relationship. And we ended up winning a government-funded project with a company called Open Systems Lab, WikiHouse. And that was, government funded. It's like another 50K, of which you're pricing in your labour and the machine time in there. You can't make a profit on that because it's government funded, but your machining's priced in and your labour's priced in.
Yeah, your staff getting paid. Your machines are running,
and your psychology is. Your mental health has gone from, sitting around doing nothing to back in. And it's that glimmer of hope of kind of like, oh, yeah, great, we're back. The business hasn't gone. We've not lost. It's still there and it's still going. So, we kind of really luckily rode the wave. And the reason is because as a business, we don't put all our eggs in one basket. We're not one particular sector, and we're open to working and doing anything if it's a viable option for enjoyment and financially.
Yeah.
So we were lucky. We just got lucky. We are lucky. We don't even have a massive Instagram following. It was at the time, it was like 1,200 people. Just so happened that one image of one plastic screen got to one guy who was the guy who was buying plastic screens, and we could get plastic at a price that nobody else could get it at.
Yeah.
So we weren't overcharged. People were charging like, we were doing these screens at like £75 a screen, and they were getting quoted like 1,200, 1,800. And I was like, no, it's 75 quid because I can get this many on a sheet. This is how much the sheet is. I mean, we could have got a lot of holidays out of it, but it's just not. That's not me. It's not me, and it's not Matt. It's not the way we work. We're about the relationship and enjoying it, and customer service, which does dwindle at times. But yeah, right. So the COVID, from a work point of view, we were lucky, really lucky. So yeah, we managed to get through it.
How did you feel sort of coming through? Were you like, did it kind of ease out, like you say? And I mean, the way that you tell it is kind of like it's like you dodged a bullet of like not having to get too worried, but then also at the same time you didn't get overwhelmed with too much work. So for example, a lot of the people that I speak to, they'll be office workers, they're working at home, they don't always have that division of space sort of thing, and it's that weird experience of life and work being kind of jammed together. Did you have any of that, or were you like, was COVID kind of not too bad on the work-life balance kind of mental health perspective?
Yeah, so I think it was probably the best balance I've ever had. When I was at home, and there was nothing to really do. And it was almost like kind of starting a business again, because you're like, oh, a lead. Oh, there's a potential here of a job. And then you're like, oh, actually, I've got the workshop and I've got the machinery. So when I was at home, I was very much at home. And I was ingrained in that. I'm with my kids and I'm at home, and I was making pizzas and bread and sourdough like everybody else, and just enjoying that kind of, like, I never get the brain space to do this or the time to do this. So yeah, I was, whereas Kate was like, doing lessons and doing this and on the computer and off the computer, and you can hear kids screaming in the background, and we try to do some work, and it's all that kind of stuff. I didn't have any of that because I can't work from home, because I can't bring a 3-ton CNC machine back. I can only bring my computer back at the time, and that was it. So yeah, it was, for me, it was a great time. Mental health wise, I ended up doing an online cognitive behavioral therapy course. So when you said, have I ever had anything for it? Yeah, I have, but it didn't come until COVID.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately it was just because I was really lost. I wasn't burning any energy in the workshop, staying up late, probably not eating and drinking great, and just like kind of got myself a bit lost. And if to be honest with you, if I'm not just a little bit stressed, I'd have that kind of panicked focus. I really struggle. If I'm kind of floating about, I'm Mr. Middle Ground. If I'm floating about, kind of doing nothing, I'm stressed. If I'm doing way too much, I'm stressed. But if I'm kind of stressed in the middle, I'm good.
It's that Goldilocks zone. It's all about the Goldilocks zone, isn't it? It's like, you need a bit of something, but not too much of it. Not too little of it either.
Yeah. It's that kind of like midline adrenaline. The adrenaline you have before you get on the roller coaster. That's the one I like. Just like that bit. I'm all right for going on it. Someone else can go on it, but that kind of panic, get it done. Achieve, deadline, panic, stress. Yeah, I like that. Thrive off that. So yeah, COVID kind of took that away a little bit. There wasn't much panic as such.
In your work, do you have to do quite a lot of social media kind of work? And if you do, do you see the point in doing work on social media? Like, do you get a good return investment from it? Is it something that you just do for fun occasionally, or is it like, from your perspective, is it kind of like vital for you and for business and your business?
Yeah, so I would say, for us, we do it ourselves. It's totally a full-time job, and never have the time to do it. I kind of go back to that comment of, if I don't do it, it could be a yes. If I do it, it could be a no. And putting a post up, and you start seeing the comments, seeing the likes, seeing this, seeing that, and you put so much onto it, and you kind of like, oh, yeah. I think that for me, I've just been speaking to Leanne from Butterflump to do our marketing for us. She's done a bit for a guy who I know, done a great job. So I'm kind of like at a point where me and Matt like let somebody else kind of take those reins. So yes, we see a value in it, because otherwise we wouldn't have somebody do it. Do I understand it? Technically, absolutely not. Will I ever get it right if I do it myself? Absolutely not. Do we get work from it? Absolutely yes. But it's not the crux of all our business. Where a lot of word of mouth, and Instagram is a great way, for example, for people to have a quick look, like a portfolio, to kind of go, I've been on your website, been on your Instagram, your work looks great. Can you quote me this? So yeah, it's me and Matt are really bad at talking on video. Look at what we do. Look at this. Look at it, and that kind of style of it. So we're a little bit kind of, here's a video of a machine, here's a photo of a product. It's a bit vanilla.
Here's the thing I can build you. I can build that. Can you build this? Yes, I can do that. It's not. This is amazing, and it's flashy, and look at the lights and the dancers.
Exactly. Yeah. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. Sort of thing. Tough. Yeah.
So we'll do social media. We'll do Brexit. So obviously it was kind of tied up at the end of COVID. I'm expecting that the only kind of impact that you might have had could be in terms of supplies. But yeah, since we have Brexited, has there been any change in your work? Has it been better, worse, the same? Have you noticed?
Yes, as you stated, it's raw materials. That's our main issue. We buy in, quite a lot. Well, we buy from our suppliers in Leeds a lot of raw materials, wood sheet, sheet wood material, and it's the price was. So when we were building the houses, the testing for those houses that we were doing with the guy who I met through lockdown, the sheet price was £22 per sheet. Then the Brexit deal occurred, and we coming out of it, wherever we are in that position at the minute, the sheet price went from £22 a sheet to £49 a sheet. So all of a sudden, this project kind of starts to become less viable when you're looking at buying 750 sheets, or where it starts to, okay, this product that was this much is now just over doubled in price for the raw materials to make this project. So that makes a big difference. That's really so far the only thing, that has really stood out. I'm sure there's little things that have kind of happened without us even knowing. But the raw material situation went from bad to worse with Russia invading the Ukraine. So we had Brexit, increased it, fluctuated high, dropped back down a bit. Russia invaded the Ukraine, and it went through the roof and not available.
It seemed like last year was worse than 21, I suppose, because there was still kind of lockdowns ongoing. But it's weird because all those 3 years they blend together, don't they?
Yeah, literally.
Well, the last 2 years, but yeah, it was. I'm loath to say things feel more normal now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They kind of feel a little bit more normal, but they're not. Like, it's still not normal, is it?
No, it's not. It's not pre-COVID normal.
And that wasn't that
Yeah.
normal.
No, no.
So the last one of the four kind of impact questions. So climate change. So is this something that affects your work? Is it something that you kind of consider in your work? And yeah, if it's something that you're thinking about, is there anything that you can do in your work to either promote adaptation or mitigation or just awareness?
So yeah, it comes down to your morals. It's how you feel at the end of the day, having loaded a skip up of waste, or we don't use much plastic anymore, so that's kind of good. There's not much call for it in the industry as much. There's not many people kind of make this. It's kind of been alternate ways, like there has with the plywood, because you can't get that. As I stated a couple of times, I'll come to the furniture at some point. With what we do, when you look at the event side of things, and when you look at an office fit out, or me making you a piece of furniture, there's a longevity to the product. The waste is easier to swallow when I know that I've made you a dining table that you might pass on to your grandkids as a heirloom. It's not going to be, because that's not the kind of furniture we make. But the moral behind a piece of furniture, and even an IKEA piece of furniture, because I've got IKEA furniture in my house that I've had for years, it lasts. It does last, and it's there for a length of time in your house. Even if that length of time is a week, that week can be considerably longer than some of the event work that is worked on, where it's for an hour, for 2 hours, for a night, for a weekend, whatever. And it's more often than not skipped at the end of it. So I'd quite like to diversify our business slightly into being more in the permanent side of the build products, where the waste that you have is waste from a product that is going to be there for a longer period of time, rather than coming back and then itself being waste. So, but ultimately, there's more money in events, so.
Yeah. If you don't think about those costs and you can push those costs off. Like not necessarily to the buyer, but I mean to the larger society of like, well, if I take this cheaper product, I make more money, but the carbon cost of it and then disposal of it is terrible.
Exactly. And people valuing pieces of handmade furniture in your local area, it's quite high. You can go to IKEA, you can go to Habitat through Argos, you can go, well, you can't go to made.com anymore, but you can go to these places where you can get something that's churned out where you don't know the credibility, really. IKEA are probably pretty good, but made.com is ultimately made where you don't know what's happening to the waste, you don't know what's happening to the workers, you don't know what's happening, and the shipping. You're paying for something and it's got the carbon footprint of it coming on a container from wherever over the world. It's just ridiculous for this one piece of furniture. Whereas I'm kind of like, well, I want to make furniture in Leeds and sell it to people in Leeds, and I'll buy an electric van and deliver it, or I'll get a cool delivery service, or people can come and collect it, or we will ship it out, but keep it as reduced as possible and use materials that are so much more sustainable and ecological and ethical, and all that. But ultimately, the bottom line is that that's not every job we do. So we have waste. So at the minute, for us, where we've just got a price for a clean air furnace, so we will burn our waste. That will burn in a furnace which burns clean and is filtered, and the heat generated heats up the workshop. In the summertime, it has a dump, so the heat goes out of the workshop. But we will then not have to be putting on electric heaters or diesel heaters or freezing. We'll be burning clean. we'll reduce our waste. When we reduce our waste, we're not just reducing landfill, we're reducing the skip wagon driving to us and back from us.
Yeah.
We're reducing the traffic that causes. So there's all those kind of small positives that we can do and try and do, and that's our aim. We'll never be perfect.
And you're getting full use out of the materials as well then, aren't you?
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
There is no waste.
Yeah.
Well, essentially, ideally, yeah.
So the furnace we want to get can burns at a high temperature, so we can burn things that ordinarily aren't clean to burn, but it'll burn them clean. A bit like biomass burning, like the big furnace in Leeds, basically. It's similar to that. Not as big or small. So yeah, it's kind of that's the minute the best we can do in the industry we're in is to clean up the amount of waste going to landfill and how that's transported to and from, and trying to make sure the jobs we pick. I'm quoting a job at the minute, and they've asked me to quote it, and I've said, look, can I kind of push you in more of in a sustainable material direction than just a generic MDF? And they're like, yeah, fine. It comes with more of a cost, but you can turn around to anybody who questions you and say, here's the credentials. It's a lot more sustainable if we could have done it this way, albeit it's a bit more expensive. But again, they're museum pieces, display pieces, so they'll be there for the long haul. They're not a 1 week install and gone. They're there for hopefully years.
Yeah. I mean, on those kind of disposable installs, I'm thinking like that the only thing there is, it's more modular design use, isn't it? It's just more use of the flats kind of coming apart and being able to be kind of recolored and shifted about.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, but
there's always going to have to be waste for something like that, where it's just going to be a one-off show. It's like,
yeah, I mean, you go to something like we've done some big exhibition stands, over the years, and people are just tearing stuff down and throwing it in a skip, all sorts of materials, because it's done a season's tour around the UK, 5 events, and it's tired and it's not what they want next season, so it's going in the skip, and that's it, job done. And I get it, and ultimately, who's at fault really? Is it the consumer for needing to be wowed by something? That they have to be wowed by this cool build with structures and look at this and look at us as a company, and is it the fault of the amount of competition there is where people have to be better than the next person? And it's so self-perpetuating that people want to see better, people want to be better. That all costs money and time, and it creates a lot of waste.
But also disposing of it properly would create, it would create a lot of jobs, but it'd create a lot of costs as well. And even if they were going to sell on all those raw materials, they could break them apart, say, and recover some of the costs, and they got reused, recycled, upcycled, whatever. That's still time that you've got to get someone re-preparing the materials, then selling them, then finding buyers, and so it, in the skip.
You get a skip for 300 quid and it's gone, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. That's your whole problem gone. Yeah, exactly.
Except it isn't gone; it's still there, but mentally, it's gone. So, what have we got next? Have we done all the big changes? We've done Brexit. We've done climate change. I mean, is there anything else that you want to add on that? Feel free before we move on.
Yeah, no, I mean, from COVID through to Brexit and the climate change stuff, it's kind of, sometimes you feel it's all above your pay grade. You kind of like, I know I need to understand it more, but I've got to get this job finished. I've got to pay this bill. I've got to get home, and I've got to spend time at the weekend, and I don't want to work on an evening, and kind of, then you think, I'll employ somebody to worry about that stuff, and then that's another wage, and where's that money coming from? And as a small business, those things are really hard. Those steps, those progression, those understanding and having time, and when you're busy and you're churning stuff out to pay the bills. You do lose sight of a lot of these things where you kind of like, at the minute I've been talking to my wife where I'm like, I need to take a step back. And at the minute I feel really the need to take a step back from the business in a overseeing kind of like, we're doing this wrong, we're doing that wrong, change this, we need to change that. I don't like how this works. And I think a lot of that has come from the COVID time off. I'm thinking, actually, when I had that time off, I could step back and look at it as an outsider a little bit and make different decisions. I need to do that again. So, I feel like, between me and my business partner, Matt, we kind of, at the minute we're both on very different paths for the same aim. He really graphs and I don't, and I'm aware of that, but I kind of have my kids on a Monday and a Wednesday, so my week's a bit split up. He's just had a kid, but he's still just kind of like going, and I'm like, you need to stop because you're almost panicking. The COVID panic. What if it all stops next week? And it So I think I think COVID, Brexit, climate stuff is kind of it's in the drawer. I need to open up the drawer and clean it out.
I mean, it's heavy stuff, but they're all kind of relevant to the decade is the thing. And I wanted to look at them through kind of a work lens, because if you look at them on a kind of personal politics lens, it just gets messy too quickly. Whereas if it applies to like your work, I think it's like you say, if you keep it something material, real, applicable, rather than ideas about ourselves and how we appear and so on. I think when you talk about work, you talk more about reality. But that's my opinion.
It's so true. And ultimately, like you can worry. I suppose the question is, do my staff worry about the waste? Do my staff look at the waste we have in a skip, and do they, are they going on to talk to people and say, oh, we've always got, crap in the yard and going in a skip, and, they're doing something about it, but is it good enough? And, and ultimately, that's that, as a business owner, that's some of the worry you take home is the perception, of your own staff, your perception of your customers, your perception of your friends and family around you, of how you're working and what you're doing, and I think it's from a business point of view rather than a personal point of view. I do what I can. I put stuff in the recycling and we do our bit. But from a business point of view, you've got a responsibility.
Yeah. The final thing I'll say on that before I move on to the next one, just talking about the waste. Like I'm always banging on about climate change. I worked at an airline where I was throwing away computers. I went just put these big racks of computers they were being sort of recycled and stuff, but a lot of that is just waste and just churn, and you're just like,
you hope it's being recycled, don't you? That's the thing. You hope it's being recycled. So it's I mean, I know people who've worked throwing away like pallets of taps, sink taps, because they got them on like the deal, and it was a tax, like kind of offload, and we do this and do that, and then they're just skipping them, and you're like, jeez.
Okay, so we'll do the more happier questions now, a bit more idealistic. So firstly, the change question. So if you could change any 3 things about your work, and you kind of can because it's your own business, but this is an ideal world scenario, so you can go big here if you want. What 3 things would you change?
I would change the size of the workshop so it was bigger. I'd love a bit more space to move around in. I don't even want more stuff in there. I just want more space to move around. It's so on my mind at the minute on how messy and busy and like carnage it is. I think I'd like to be able to, if I could just kind of click my fingers and just be able to kind of go, just so honest to customers and people. Like I said to you before, people stressing over a deadline or kind of you're squirming over sending an invoice because you don't know if it's too much and we don't overcharge people. It just doesn't happen. We never do it. Much to my wife's dismay, we just don't do it. But just to kind of go, do you know what? That just took me 15 hours to do that, and I've charged you 40 quid. You can just be realistic. So the realism, and I think this must go for so many people who work for themselves, especially like artists and illustrators, and that industry where it's like people just expect stuff tomorrow and for nothing. Like,
I think that's been made worse by the internet. Like, I really do think that everyone thinks now that like you press a button or click a button, a wizard does it, and then you get the thing, and then someone comes along and gives you a bill as if like human beings actually worked on this. How much? All I did was click a thing and it appeared.
Yeah, literally, I ordered something on Amazon a couple of nights ago and then realized that it was a silly purchase. And me and my wife were like impulse buying this, like, we got the kids like a paddling pool, and it was just like heater thing. Sounds really flash, but we were like, that's just too much money and it's pointless. So I cancelled it like 2 hours later. And it was like, your order is already prepared. I was like, it's already been shipped. I was, no, it hasn't. It has not been done. You just don't want to cancel this order. Like, that is not being prepared, because if someone ordered that off me, I'd have ignored the email first before I'd have been preparing it. It's like, no way. So yeah, I think space to do stuff, realism of what is and how stuff is done. Just come and sit in the workshop for a day and watch us all work, and then tell me that the value is too high for the product when you've seen us physically doing what we do. And time, I think time for me, the older I get, I'm the same old, I'm 39, 40 in a few months. Just time, for it not to matter if I just want to kind of go, you know what, I'm off to go pick my kids up. I'm not coming in next week. And I do have that luxury because I work for myself, and I'm really lucky. And there's so many people who are having to spend money on childminders, and I know how much that costs because we've been there and done that. And not having that time, and I suppose because I've had a sniff of that time, that I'm kind of like, oh, do you know what? I'd like more of it. And I'd like more of it for everybody involved. I'd like staff to have more time. I'd like my business partner to have more time. I'd like the jobs to have more time on them for us to enjoy doing them. But to have more time on it, I can't afford for the job to run on that long. So I'd like people to be realistic over the time and the price and, all those things that would be, so nice. The space, the time, and, the reality of it all.
Not having the argument over money, essentially, isn't it? It's kind of like, this is the price. I'm not screwing. I'm not trying to do you over. I'm just trying to get paid.
Yeah. I mean, I see loads of things like on Instagram or TikTok, and they always make me laugh. Where it's like, I'm not too expensive. You just can't afford me. I'd love to be able to say that to somebody. Oh, sorry, I'm not too expensive. You just can't afford me. But ultimately, all they're going to do is go, yeah, I'm not going to make any money. So I've got to go rework my quote, haven't I? So I can get a bit of money out of this job and actually make some money and pay some bills. So ultimately, for me to turn around and go, I'm not too expensive. You just can't afford it. It's just like, great. Say that to all you, because you're going to have none. You got it. It's got to be a relationship, and it's got to work. But I think sometimes I'd just like people to kind of go, oh shit, yeah, that looks really hard lifting up that sheet of wood, and you got to sand it for how many hours and how many coats, and you got to wrap it, and you got to move it, and you got to get it. Oh, now there's another job, and and it's just kind of like, So I've threatened Matt. I've said to him, look, I'm going to set a GoPro up and just be like, here's just film a week and just send it to all the customers and kind of go, can you mind just watching this? So next time you send through a job to quote, you kind of get that actually, like, we are trying our hardest.
Ultimately, the reason we're paying people, like people buy from people, we think we're buying the thing, but we're not. We're paying for either a service or a product from a person, but we're paying the person. We're not I mean, we are buying the thing, but ultimately we are paying the person, and it is about that paying people. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to pay people.
Yeah, exactly. It's you've got to feed the machine, haven't you? Ultimately,
Well, and got to feed us. We're the machine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it gets lost, doesn't it? It gets lost in emails. It gets lost in phone calls. I'll tell you, that's what I would do. I'd get one of my other three. I'll add a fourth on. I'd get rid of WhatsApp. Absolutely get rid of WhatsApp, because the amount of times I get messaged by customers on WhatsApp, and you just forget that ever happened. You know, you message me on WhatsApp, and the next thing I've got an email, and then I'm on a job. Do that, and that WhatsApp might not get looked at then until I'm at home at 9 o'clock when all the kids are in bed and I'm sat down, chilled out. So it gets forgotten. Emails don't. So yeah, get rid of WhatsApp. Anyone who's WhatsApping for jobs, just you're going to get forgotten fast.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you're familiar with UBI. So if there was a universal basic income, how do you think that might change your work? Would you work as much? Would you still be doing what you do now? Would you work differently? How might it affect things for you?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think if I could do what I do for free, I'd still do it because I enjoy what I do. Don't get me wrong, at the minute we need to sort of iron out a few issues that are just general running of a business issues, but I enjoy doing it. And I'm not driven by money. Maybe I should be driven by money, but I'm not. I mean, I'm driven by enjoying what I do, and I get paid for doing what I do. So a universal basic income for me, I'm not really bothered, but for kind of everybody else, I am. And it kind of goes back to the realization and the reality of how long stuff takes, and again, illustrators, artists, creatives in that field that are just undervalued for their time. There's a guy I follow on Instagram, Spindle Printer. You might have seen him. Does these amazing lino prints that I know for a fact take hours, and he'll sell a print. And I'm not sure how much he charges for one, but I guarantee you should be paying £200, £300, £400 for a print, because that's someone's internal creativity coming out onto something that makes like this podcast. You're making something happen that didn't exist. It didn't exist. You've set this up. No one else has, and you're making it happen. Therefore, you should be valued for that. But you're doing this because you love doing it and you enjoy it, I hope. So therefore, you're kind of valuing the enjoyment over any monetary gain, and you're enjoying the kind of spreading of conversation over monetary gain, the people's kind of views and opinions over the monetary gain. And I think like that, that's for me the same, in that I enjoy building and doing things, and I'm not the monetary gain isn't the first thing. It's people's happiness over what we've made, which goes back to like the furniture. If I make a piece of furniture, you put it in your house, you rub your hand over it, you look at it, you enjoy it, you put ornaments on it, you put whatever on it, you sit and eat your dinner at it, or you put your telly on it or whatever, and it's the enjoyment. And I always say it'd be really nice to just get invited to somebody's house who I didn't know, and you walked in and they bought one of your pieces of furniture, and you're like, oh wow, I did that. To me, is such a higher value than any monetary exchange of this is what I'll give you for that product. But ultimately, we need to, the world needs to keep going round, and money keeps it going. So yeah, is that a naff answer? That's a bit of a vague kind of skirting around the issue of it, but yeah.
That's a
I think
perfectly fine answer.
yeah, I think because I worked for myself before doing this, and
Mm,
I ended up in debt, and I ended up with no money and owing money, and
mm,
it became such a negative that I was like, oh, I'm chasing everything to pay and have nothing.
yeah.
So I don't want to value that. I want to value my time and my experience and my day
Mm,
more so than I do the money.
mm,
Um, so yeah,
mm.
I don't like money. I
I think
think is the crux of it. Yeah,
I agree with you on that. It's bloody awful stuff, but yeah, then but it's nice to have lots of it when you do have lots of it though as well.
yeah. But does it just bring different problems?
Well,
Does
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Does it? I don't know. Yeah, I think. Oh yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah, I could talk forever about money, and I'd probably contradict myself 1,000 times doing it. But I just find it such a stress-inducing, like
It's
keeping
over
up with
and
Jesus.
but it's over and nothing as well, isn't it? It's like what this thing that didn't, it's not like when we evolved money, like it's not part of our biology. It's
Yeah,
not
no, exactly.
real in that
Yes,
sense. Like one thing that I think is really interesting from your answer there, like I think, and from a work perspective as well, like it's made me think of, when someone's passionate about something, they're excited about it and they can speak with love about it, or someone is good at something, like a footballer, a painter, like someone who's just really good at something. Like it's enjoyable to just watch their passion or just hear the passion, isn't it, a lot of the time? And I think that's the thing as
yeah,
well, like
yeah,
you
totally.
saying with building stuff, it's like being passionate about it, being interested, viewing it as a craft, wanting to get better, wanting to learn more, wanting to see what else you can do and test yourself. That creates good work, and that is good work. That's what people want to see, is like people enjoying themselves and people doing it well and getting better, and it's what we want to see for ourselves. But yeah, I don't think I've ever really made that connection as much with passion and being interested in passion, because it's even just like, you must see this with your kids when they get excited about something and you're just like, I don't care about this, but I'm loving that they're loving it. Like I'm really excited that
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
excited.
Yeah, that's it. And it goes back, doesn't it, to when it all sort of started when I was 5, 6 years old, messing around in my dad's garage building stuff. I wasn't getting paid.
Mm,
There was no money. My dad wasn't going, can you build me a little go-kart, so you can go down the street on it and I'll give you some money. It was because I enjoyed it. There was
mm,
no ulterior innocence of that and no ulterior motive. No, I'm doing this to get something. I'm
mm,
doing it because I'm losing my own thoughts and time and just getting swept up in the creativity of. I started with a few bits of wood and four wheels, and now I'm going down the street about to break my neck on some go kart that doesn't work, and ultimately that's what I'm still doing. But now I've got to pay a mortgage and
yeah.
you know go on a holiday or put fuel in a car or whatever. It's
Mm,
kind of like, oh, can we just not have all that money situation and just kind of enjoy it and crack on?
mm, mm. Yeah, absolutely. Let's do a little bit on furniture before I do the hand over to you, because I
Yeah,
know as well that you've got another website with the furniture.
that's right.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, like I feel that this is going to be not ages, but will take some explaining, or that you
Yeah,
have a bit to say on it. So okay,
so
let's do
I'll
the
be
furniture bit.
I'll be as succinct as possible. But where you were saying people talk passionately about things, this is kind of where my passion lies.
Mm,
But yeah, I'll break it down as quick as possible in a as a clear as possible way. Yeah, so lockdown kind of hit, and I had nothing to do, so I started toying with the idea of doing a bit of furniture, and then we did a little job a guy called Drew Millward, amazing illustrator, who lives out in Keighley Way. But he does like blunderbuss posters, Northern Monk can stuff, like just amazing illustrations. He illustrated this kind of little outdoor shed for his son, which we machined all his illustration into it and built it for him. So I dropped that off over to him when we were allowed out and to work and machine and build and do all that kind of stuff. You still feel cagey, don't you? I did it, but I wasn't allowed out. Don't worry, it was okay.
I had my hall pass.
Boris said there was a package deal of being allowed out, so I'm all right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, we did that, and then I was like, "Oh, Drew, like, do you want to? If I work on a bit of furniture, like, do you want to do some illustrations, and I'll etch those onto the furniture, and then kind of like work with you. You've got a really good following on Insta. We don't. It's another thing to start, and it's kind of a bit fresh, and maybe the events and everything's going to be gone. So we've got all the machines, so I can use the machines in the workshop to build furniture and sell it to people. And furniture is my passion, and it's my, I'm like madly in love with looking, building, creating furniture, and quite a lot of the time sitting on it and doing nothing, procrastinating. So we kind of started that in lockdown, and just did it as like an Etsy and a Shopify, and it got like sort of like fairly popular for about a week or so because of the instant hit of Instagram and people putting it up, Drew posting about it and us posting about it. But ultimately, it fits into everything. I've got a workshop, I can build stuff. So what I was saying to you about space, I can organize my space better. So the three changes. I can organize my space better if I'm making specific pieces of furniture. So I'll have the space. If I'm making furniture, I know what orders I'm getting and what I've got to make and how I've got to make it. I know what staff I need for that. So I've got the time back. I can't remember what my three things were. Space, time.
People understanding the price of things.
People understanding
realistic
the price
costs, yeah.
Realistic costs. So the furniture will be priced at a price it's priced at. Therefore, if you want to buy it, you'll buy it. If you don't want to buy it, you won't buy it. I don't have to argue over whether it's too expensive or not. So those three things are solved, in my opinion, by having furniture as our new way of running the business. Ultimately, you've then got a product that is hopefully in your house for a long period of time. So your waste and your sustainability as a business is far greater. So I'm now making products where I know exactly what my waste is because it's not a random job that's coming next week that I'm quoting on.
Same amount.
And I don't want to be a factory churning out stuff.
Yeah.
But what I want to have is a handle on what's happening and how much of it's happening and when.
Yeah.
That means financially, I know what we're making. It means waste, I know what's being created, and I know what space I need, and all those things. For me, it creates a mass amount of clarity that makes it easier to run the business. Our industry runs at a 10 to 15% profit margin. The furniture industry runs at a 48 to 52% profit margin. But you're paying for my thoughts, you're paying for my ideas. I'm ultimately an artist and designer creating pieces of furniture that therefore you would hopefully want to buy if you saw it and you liked it online or in a shop. A bit like IKEA. As someone who loves furniture, and you might be like, oh my God, IKEA, churning out stuff. I'm telling you now, the people who sit and design those pieces of furniture are some of the smartest people creating things for furniture in the world because they're great. If you can't put it together, it's not IKEA's fault. I can guarantee you. It's because you've not read the instructions and you've not quite done it right because it's a great way of working. So that as a concept, and our creativity as a concept, I kind of wanted to put both together and kind of be like, look, we can make flat pack furniture that's affordable for most, but has a bit more design about it. There's something about it that isn't. If you buy a piece of IKEA furniture, chances are somebody else has got that in. Somebody else in your friend's group has got that in their house, and you'll see the same thing. Whereas I'd quite like to have something where your friends come around and they go, "Oh, well, that's really cool. Looks like an IKEA piece of furniture, but really cool." And you go, "Yeah, it is, but it's from this place, and actually, it's really unique because it's been tied in with this illustrator. So it's actually kind of a bit of a one-off, albeit other people are buying it." So." So yeah, I mean, this is like the worst sales pitch for a business in the world. But so what I wanted to do is, because I'm so used to working with customers, I wanted to do all the pieces of furniture, all the ranges of furniture as collaborations. Because we work with customers all day, every day. There's a deadline. There's a responsibility. You've got to get it done. You've got to create it for that person and that company or whoever, wherever. Whereas with the furniture, for me, it was too far on the first quarter, the first third of the floatiness of stress. There wasn't enough stress. I wasn't. It has to achieve it for any reason. I was just doing it. So by putting a collaboration on there, I have to do it because they're expecting it to be done. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And I've got the next range, literally, honestly, it was ready to launch. I'd photographed it, had marketing ready, had everything ready. And then Russia invaded the Ukraine and I couldn't get the materials. Or the price went so high and then I couldn't get them. So it completely put the pin in it. So yeah, it's a constant niggle in the back of my mind that I've started something and not yet finished it. And it's such a nice range of furniture as well, in my humble opinion.
You've got the website up there now.
So there's a piece here. I don't know if I can turn my camera around. Let me see. I've got it in my house. Here we go. There's a kettle full of crap. So I'll move my bag. I'll move the bin. So I've got this piece here.
All right. Yeah.
So it's taken off the design of a William Morris who did lots of wallpaper and whatnot. It's a recliner chair, so it's like a real manual reclining chair, real clunky. But that, along with like a bureau and a few other bits, and we were working with North Star Coffee Shop in Leeds, and they're the collaboration. So they were a real nice company to collaborate with. Working from home, coffee, sitting, relaxing, coffee, sitting at your desk, all kind of working nicely. And then, Putin came along with his massive pin and burst my balloon. But very, very minor compared to what he's actually doing.
Being on the front end of it,
But yeah, exactly. But I suppose it shows how it's affecting everybody. It's affecting people that you don't necessarily expect it to affect. It's not affecting me negatively. It's not affecting me emotionally, but it's certainly stuck an element of frustration in there. But it's also educated me a lot on, there's other materials out there. There's other ways of doing things. And so the furniture is my passion, my need to scratch of an itch, and I've not yet scratched it.
Well, watch this space, folks. I think that's the area of growth, isn't it? It's like it's a nut for you to crack, and I think you probably will crack it.
I just think we're so set up in from the workshop, literally as a physical setup, we've got the setup to do it. It's taking that leap from knowing that we've got work to then just doing that. We know we've got work, we know what we're doing, we know our industry, we've got orders coming in, we're making money. To just hard, fast change to furniture is not viable. To slowly change to it is equally quite difficult because you've got your other commitments you've got to work on. So it's time, time again, and it's finding the time to do it.
Just a quick question, just for my own personal interest. Did you see the Chippendale exhibition at Leeds Museum by any chance?
No, I haven't. No, I didn't.
It was a while ago,
actually.
but yeah, I think you would have enjoyed that.
Yeah,
because he had a workshop in Leeds, didn't he?
Yeah, well, you've got I mean, so I grew up with my parents going to Aberford Pine and spent many a year going around pine shops and then Mouse Manor Kilburn and seeing all that kind of stuff. And then saw quite a lot of the Chippendale. I think it was at the V&A potentially years ago. Not the time to even know about it.
No, well, most of these things you see them after they've been on, don't you? You're kind of like, it's gone.
Yeah.
So, give us all your socials. Where can people find you?
So the company is 3Create. So website is 3create.co.uk. Instagram 3Creates. I think it's 3_create. And that's the 3Create Instagram. We've got one for the furniture, but I'll leave that one for now, only because we've got Leanne with Butterflump, who gave me some great advice to start with, where I'd separated them off, but she's going to bring them back together as one. So it'll be 3Create and the furniture side of it, which at the minute is called Tangible, but which I really like the name of Tangible, and it's something we've got and can touch. So yeah, 3_create is Instagram, 3Create's the website. If you want to come to the workshop and have a look around and just nosy about, we're always more than welcome for people to just come and kind of have a look and see what we do and get an understanding of it. Because one, you don't know where that leads job-wise, and two, I like to show people like stuff they don't normally see on a daily basis. And we're based out in Knottingley, which is just near Pontefract, just outside of Leeds. Purely because rent is an absolute steal out there compared to Leeds. We got priced out, but we didn't value a big open space to be that much money when you can get it cheaper elsewhere. But yeah, anyone's welcome anytime.
Cool. Anything you want to discuss, throw in there at the end? I mean, we've been talking for a while, and so understandable if you don't, but yeah. If you want to say anything.
I don't know. I don't know if there's much more for me to add or waffle on about.
I mean, I think it's a good thing to give people that sort of space at the end, but by the end of that, you're kind of like, I think I've talked about everything.
I don't think people need to know any more about me.
Exactly. They should share my life story. What more do you want?
I think from my point of view, if you're, I suppose maybe an encouragement or an advice thing of, I gave it a go and failed, and I gave it a go again, and it's doing all right. I'm not going to sit here saying I'm, Mr. Business Entrepreneur Millionaire, because I'm not, but I enjoy it, and that's the key thing. If it doesn't work out, just keep going. There's always another opportunity.
Yeah, I can't say there's a better lesson than that. So I'm going to stop the recording there. So thank you very much for doing this, Paul.
Not a problem. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Good. Thank you again to Paul for being my guest. Thanks as always to all my guests, and thanks to you, Leeds, for being my subject. And if you're in Leeds or from Leeds, if you are Leeds, then please come on the show. Yes, I am speaking to you. I still need to find 897 loiners to interview, so being a guest is the greatest help. You will enjoy it, 100% satisfaction so far as I know. Remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe to Working Hours, and please consider supporting Working Hours financially with either a regular or one-off donation of any amount. You can email Working Hours at workinghourspod@western-studios. You can email Working Hours at workinghourspod@western-studios.com. Okay, that's me. Work for peace and plan with kindness. Take care out there, Leeds. Cheers, ears. Take care out there and be kind to each other, Leeds. Working Hours is produced, recorded, edited and published by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org. Follow Western Studios Leeds on Facebook at facebook.com/Western_Studios_Leeds and on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. Western Studios Leeds will help you realise your podcast for only £25 for an hour of podcast work. Need podcast production, recording, editing, or any podcast admin doing? Need it all doing? Do you want or need a podcast host or co-host for your podcast project? Then get in touch with Western Studios Leeds Limited. Email makemypodcast@western-studios.com to get your podcast made. I am available to third sector organisations, small to medium-sized businesses and individuals who want to make podcasts or create other digital audio content. Want to make some fundraising case studies? Want to show off your expertise in your field? Want some help creating your show and format, or just some support learning to podcast and getting going? Whatever your podcast needs, get in touch with Western Studios Leeds. Go to western-studios.com and use the contact page to drop me a message about either working hours or about your own podcast project.